Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Board No Game video. Today's video is dedicated to basics of progression, how to go from early game to mid game, from mid game to end game. So let's go ahead and jump right into things and talk about rerolls. So one of the first characters you need to reroll for is Makoto, because she's going to enable any physical team. Note that she's not just used for clan battle. Her physical defense break is going to be applying everywhere. She's going to be a phenomenal character regardless of where you put her. She can function in quests, not that ideal, but the thing is she can be pretty decent in PvP on certain aspects. But note that she is an event enabler. She's going to enable any physical team whatsoever. The reason why physical teams are so good is because you're going to have a bunch of physical DPS such as Kaori, Shiori, Suzuna, Mimi, all these different characters that will help you do single target DPS, and Makoto is going to be your go-to boss killer, your go-to person to make any events easy. She's not just good for clan battle. The next set of characters that you want to reroll for is someone like Io or any of the mages. So let's go ahead and cover a few things and talk about team comps. So this is pretty much the ideal start. Note here I put a bunch of different names. If you don't know what these names mean, feel free to scroll up. This is my story recommendations area, and I talk about all the different characters, and this is credits to David from the discords. Feel free to check out the official discords, but that is pretty much where I acquired this information in case you were curious. So if you have Miyako, feel free to use Miyako, and if you have like any of these characters, I highly recommend them. This is probably the second most important bracket to reroll or have outside of Makoto. Have someone like Io, Anna, Hatsune, or Akari. They're going to make your PvP pushing much easier. Speaking of PvP, let's go ahead and talk about it. So these are the brackets, and if you're wondering why is PvP so important, some of you are probably wondering, hey Bork, how do you have 50,000 gems and how were you able to do that? Because that's a lot of gems. I want that amount of gems, right? So in order to acquire that, I pretty much pushed PvP. As soon as I hit chapter 4, I gunned for like top 1000 or top 100. This is going to be the amount of jewels that you can get from rank 15 to rank 1, and it's one of those things where it's very difficult obviously to push to the highest ranks. It's very easy in the beginning. I highly recommend waiting a couple of days before the next bracket opens up. Usually it takes like a week nowadays. It might take a little bit longer, but at the end of the day a bracket will open up, so feel free to pretty much check this very frequently in order to jump into PvP appropriately. Now, when it comes to this, some of you are wondering when is the chapter that PvP pretty much opens up. It's going to be in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is going to be the place where it's like, hey, do I sit here too long or do I stay? The question is, it's all based off of personal preference. I don't recommend waiting here in this area no longer than a week, and I also recommend pushing even if you're a day to 2 days behind, because you can always get to the top 1000 ranks, and it's not worth it to stay here too long. You know why? Because if you stay here too long, you are losing progression on the dungeon, you are losing progression on possibly Princess Arena, you're losing progression on the grotto, you're losing progression on pretty much collecting coins within the shops, you're losing progression on collecting hard shards for different characters. So the longer that you sit here trying to wait for a PvP arena bracket to open up in order to farm the jewels, you are hurting yourself more on progression regarding all the different shops, regarding all the different ways to actually progress within the game. Because jewels are great for summoning, they're great for progression, but these shards, these coins right here, are eternal and they will always help you. Speaking of which, I bought my Makoto shards and arena shards, all these different shards. I have guides on them, like videos and stuff. And speaking of all that stuff, after you push PvP, the next thing is pretty much pushing in arena, and there's a bunch of guides on PvP, so feel free to check those out. And one of the biggest things I have to say is try to get to Deepwood Oak, which is the second dungeon, after the first week ideally, or first couple of days. It's pretty easy to beat the first boss, just be like around 34. You can always borrow your clan members. Feel free to join a clan as soon as possible, that way you can have your clan help you when you're pushing dungeon, because that's going to be very, very viable. Now note here, once you beat story within like chapter 4, you're stuck usually around chapter 5, chapter 6, you are seriously in the mid game, and there's a couple of things that you could do. You are probably wondering, why can't I tackle any of these chapters and why am I halted here? The reason why is most likely your player level. It has nothing to do with the characters that you have, and it has more to do with the fact that, for example, you don't have enough player level, or the most likely thing that's actually occurring is you don't have enough ranks. By that I mean you are not like the maximum rank for that chapter. So most likely if you're stuck in chapter 6, you are probably going to need characters who are at least rank 5 and within a certain level. So if you have no characters who are 5, or they're not rank 6 or something like that, it's going to be difficult to progress. And not to mention, player level is going to play a huge factor. The only way to increase your player level is by expending the stamina, and the only way to expend more stamina is you do your missions, you collect those daily stamina pots that you can get within the day, and not to mention you do refreshes on your actual stamina. Some of you are wondering, is it worth it to refresh my stamina? It's all based off of personal preference. I have pretty much some guides showing you on like, hey, is it worth it to refresh? Honestly, it's based off of things where it's like, do you think that your progression in order to refresh is worth it? Because some would say it's not worth it, some would argue it is. So here is a little like sheet showing you whether refreshing is worth it. PvP refresh is always worth it. Hard shard refreshes are never worth it. So it's gonna be based off of personal preference at the end of the day, just like any advice goes, right? You are pretty much there. I would say, being in chapter 6, chapter 5 is a good place to be stuck at for mid-game, because this is where most people are going to struggle, because you're going to try to want to build more characters and everything. I highly disregard building more characters, and I suggest just focusing on PvP. Note, clan battle is going to be a great way to earn jewels, but in the beginning, it's not going to be one of the things where you can just build 3 teams and go crazy, right? You're not going to be like this. This takes time. I've been playing the game for technically 3 months because of soft launch and everything. Obviously, I have a huge advantage when it comes to that, but everything just takes time with Princess Connect. It's not one of those games that you just bum rush and you get strong really quick. It's a very, very slow, methodical game that you progress in over time. It's not one of those ones that you just rush through. All right, so if you're looking for that in Princess Connect, I don't think that's what you're going to pretty much have. And then once you sort of get past chapter 6, you're in chapter 7 and you're starting to struggle with hard mode. This is like the things where it's like usually people get stuck like around 8-2, 7-2 hard mode. This is where it comes to prioritization between mana, or should I say prioritization within stamina. So there's certain things where it's like, hey, I haven't showed this yet, but this is going to be Lace's doc that shows all of the hard shard priorities. I highly recommend it. This is something that you should totally look at, and these are the characters you should probably build. Just note that, Yui, Kokoro, Shori, everyone's viable at 3-star. Don't go past that pretty much stage, because 3-star is going to be the happy number that everyone's going to be really good at. Anything past that, you're try-harding, you're going way too far as a normal character pretty much goes, and you're trying to push a certain type of game mode such as clan battle. So you're going to be managing your stamina between going into events, right? By the way, don't do anything past hard mode. Hard mode is the only thing you should be pretty much doing over here. And not to mention, you should also be building your characters, build a set amount of characters, whilst also farming hard shards. Now, when you're farming for hard shards, I recommend farming for only one character in the very beginning. The one character that you might want to farm for is someone like Kokoro, because she's universal, or you can farm for someone like Shori. It's really hard to say, or you can just go straight for Saren. Now, note, if you're farming for Saren, it's just going to be hard to eventually get her, but she's going to be the best 3-star support. Think of Saren as pretty much a Yukari, except she can't heal, but she's going to enable anyone who has, high DPS capabilities. For example, if you pair Saren with Mimi, Mimi's going to be absolutely excellent. Early game is just making sure you have the components to enable you on PvP, and making sure that you are somewhat ready to tackle everything, because PvP is just more about preparation and understanding underlying mechanics. Watch Lace's videos or Tomias's videos, but I believe Lace is our PvP expert and Tim is more of the clan battle expert, and I'm just sort of like a generalist when it comes to information, right? When it comes to all this, early game PvP and dungeon, right? Mid-game is sort of focusing more on actual character development, character growth, and making sure your ranks are appropriate, you have decent player level. Mid-game then turns into endgame, where it's like, oh, I need to prioritize my stamina where I'm doing events. I'm also participating within like the story, doing my hard shard farming and everything. You're pretty much doing a balancing act with your stamina in the end game. In the beginning, it's all about focusing on characters in PvP. In endgame, you can also technically decide whether you want to lean more towards PvP or you want to be a clan battle person. I don't recommend staying in PvP just because it's hard to remain relevant in here. It's just better to stick within clan battle because clan battle is going to be just a regular income for resources. Clan is full. I don't plan to make a free-to-play clan just because managing one clan is already a huge headache of its own, and not to mention I have to make sure our clan is ready for the upcoming clan battle. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. To sum things up regarding Priconne, it is a resource management game, so trying to balance your stamina, your mana, all the different characters that you have to build in order to have the ultimate start regarding PvE and PvP, collecting shards, participating in events. It's a very overwhelming task in order to properly manage everything, and that's what makes Priconne excellent. Is depending on your choices, you will have a phenomenal start. At the same time, you know, it just really takes patience, and your patience will be rewarded by having higher player level, more stamina, and it's not about, you know, bum rushing the content. It's about enjoying your waifus, waifu over meta, and just taking your time with everything, right? Anyways, if you made it this far to the video, consider subscribing, dropping a like, leaving a comment. Once we hit 20k, we'll be doing another giveaway. For the 15k giveaway, we'll announce the winners on Wednesday this week, so stay tuned for that. Details for the 15k giveaway are in the details for the previous video, and that's going to be today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.